To understand the issue that Rashi is addressing, we will need to move back into Perek 9 and clarify aspects of the final 3 pasukim of that Perek that need to be understood as an introduction to the events of Perek 10. Pasuk 22 informs us that Aaron had completed the avoda of the Yom Hashmini, the 8 days of Miluyim. Vayivarachem, he blesses the people and comes down from the Mizbeach after preparing the Chatat, the Olah, and the Shlamim. In Pasuk 23, there is a second time in which a blessing takes place, and that is after Moshe and Aharon enter the Yohel Moed, come out, Vayivarechu et ha'am, both of them bless the people, and as a consequence of that blessing, Vayera kvod Hashem el kol ha'am, the glory of Hashem, the Shechina, appears to the people. We are not told why Moshe and Aharon entered the Yohel Moed, nor the function of the second blessing. And Rashi, quoting a Medrash fill-in, links the 3 items of Pasuk 23 together, the Ohel Moed, the blessing, and the Shechina revelation. But first, some background information. We go back to the events following the Aseret HaDibrot, in which during the 40 days that Moshe Rabbeinu was up on Har Sinai, Bnei Yisrael became involved with the worship of the Egel HaZahav. Moshe returns from Har Sinai, sees what is happening, smashes the luchot at the foot of the mountain, returns back to God for another 80-day period, 2 sets of 40 days each, and returns on the 10th day of Tishrei with the new set of luchot, the luchot shniyot. It was during this 80-day period that Moshe was informed of God's intention to remove his presence from Bnei Yisrael. This was something that Moshe could not accept, and a compromise was reached. And the compromise was that the nation would be afforded the opportunity to gain atonement for their sins through the bringing of personal and communal sacrifices. According to this scenario, the creation of the Mishkan, the building of the Mishkan, represented the forgiveness for the Egel HaZahav and the return of the Shechina to Bnei Yisrael. We now skip 6 months, and we find ourselves on the Yom Hashmini, the 8th day of the consecration of the Mishkan. The Mishkan has been built. We've gone through the 8 days of consecration. In Pasuk 22, Aaron is putting the finishing touches to the final set of Karbanot, and the people await patiently and nervously for the return of the Shechina, the Amud Ha'anan. This does not happen. Moshe and Aharon enter the Ohel Moed to request the return of the Shechina. They come out, and Vayivarechu et ha'am, and the content of their blessing is, may HaKadosh Baruch Hu see it fit to return his Shechina to Bnei Yisrael. This HaKadosh Baruch Hu does, and the pasuk concludes with Vayera kavod Hashem el kol ha'am. The glory of Hashem, the Shechina, is visible to the entire nation. And this brings us into the final pasuk of Perek 9, pasuk 24. The physical demonstration of the return of the Shechina takes place when Vateitze Eish Milifnei Hashem. A fire descends from Hashem and incinerates the karbanot that Aaron had placed upon the Mizbeach. When the people see this, they are overcome with joy and song. Vayaronu, says the text, Vayiplu al panehem, falling to the ground in humility and appreciation for the return of the Shechina.
This entire sequence of events is reflected in the commentary of Rashi to the words Vayetzu Vayivarechu et ha'am, where Rashi quotes a fill-in medrash that Lefi Shekol Shivat Yemei Hamiluyim, throughout the entire 7 days of the consecration period, Shehemidu Moshe LeMishkan, in which Moshe erected the Mishkan V'Shimish Bo, he functioned in that Mishkan as the Kohen Gadol, Uperikoi B'chol Yom, and then dismantled the Mishkan each and every day. During this period, Lo Sharta Bo Shechina, the Shechina did not appear to the nation. This was somewhat of a concern to the nation. In the words of Rashi, V'hayu Yisrael nichlamim ve'omrim leMoshe, representatives of the nation became distressed in that they had been promised that the Shekhinah would once again return to the camp. V'omrin LaMoshe, they came to Moshe and said the following: Moshe Rabbeinu, Kol HaTorah sheticharnu, all of this effort that we had expended, Tishra Shekhinah Beinenu, that the Shekhinah should once again return and remain with us, through which, along with our sincere tshuva, V'neder shnit kaber lanu avon ha'egel, we would know that the sin of the egel had been atoned. All of our efforts toward achieving this goal have been in vain. The Medrash goes on to write, Lekach amar lahem, it is for this reason that Moshe responded by telling them, Zeh hadavar asher tziva Hashem ta'asu. This is what Hashem has commanded to be done, that Vayera Aleichem Kvod Hashem, so that the Shekhinah would appear to you. This davar that Moshe was referring to was that Aharon Achi, Aaron my brother, Kedai v'chashuv mimeni, he is more worthy, Sha'al Yedei Karbonotav Va'avodato, that it will be through his participation in the avoda and the offering of the Karbonot that Tishra Shechina Bachem, that the Shechina will rest amongst you. V'teidu'u, you need to know, Hamakom Bachar Bo, the HaKadosh Baruch Hu has chosen him as the Kohen Gadol. In other words, the role of spiritual leader, the Kohen Gadol, at this point in time was formally transferred over to Aharon, and it was for this reason that despite the offering of the various Karbonot on the 8th day, these offerings did not accomplish what they were intended to accomplish. It was only after Aharon took over this role that brought about the return of the Shekhinah. This answers a further difficulty, one raised by the Torah Kohanim, with respect to Vayikra 9:23. Why was it that in this situation both Moshe and Aharon entered the Ohel Moed? And secondly, if Aaron had blessed the people as of Pasuk 22, what was the function of the second blessing recorded in Vayikra 9:23? To this, Rashi, quoting the Torah Kohanim, writes that the content of the second blessing was that V'hi noam Hashem Elokeinu aleinu, may the pleasantness of Hashem our God rest upon us, recorded in Sefer Tehillim, to which the Torah Kohanim and Rashi interpret that Yehi Ratzon, may it be the will of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, that the Shekhinah should rest upon the work of your hands, referring to offering of the following Karbanot.